Get some. Welcome to Racin and stuff. I'm sorry, I probably just red lighted in the control room, but we're gonna keep rolling.
That was
here.
different this week.
I know. I feel like I need to add some color to it, but I digress. This is Racin stuff, the show where we talk about racing and other sports. And as always, I'm here with my good friend Chris. How you doing, Chris?
I'm pretty good. It's been an interesting morning. As apparently for both of us, it's been an interesting morning. So
yes, I almost blew up.
And
what was interesting for you?
Litigation. We'll just say that.
Mine was more interesting.
Yeah.
My employer tried to kill me today. No, they didn't try to. I'm sure if they tried to, they would have succeeded. But anyway, this is completely unrelated to racing or other stuff. Well, I guess it is other stuff.
It is other stuff.
Yeah.
There's one for
we should
Heidi.
probably change the
There's
name.
There's one for Heidi.
That's one. Yeah, for my friend Heidi. If you actually are still sticking with us and listening to us still, we talked about some stuff. Okay.
Litigation and blowing up.
Yeah, blowing up. Well, there was a gas leak or something at Target. Well, it was a big weekend for racing. I wouldn't say it was a big weekend for sports, but it was a big weekend for racing. And I'm very proud of today because today we're going to live up to our name. Because in this show, racing stuff has always kind of meant NASCAR and other sports. Today we're going to talk about racing, not just NASCAR. And even more so, to drive home the point, we're going to start off by talking about the 100. I think it was the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500.
No, it wasn't. It was the 93rd.
It was 93rd. Okay, but it was 100. It was 100 years ago. The first one. It was a century ago. It was 1909. The first one got run.
Oh, okay.
But they took like 7 years off for war.
Oh, well, yeah, it was the 93rd.
Yeah, so it was the 93rd, but it was the 100th anniversary or something like that. Main point being, Indy's been around for a long time.
Yeah. Yes, it has.
But we watched it together. I think it was the first IRL race both of us watched all season long.
For sure.
And it was predictable. That's what I would say.
Yep.
And I sort of called it before the race started. I said I think Helio Castroneves wins. And he did win, but I said he'd dominate, and he didn't really dominate, which is kind of, I don't know, it's amused me that people have been saying that. Like, he obviously was the class of the field. He didn't take the lead again till like 60 to go.
The race, for me, wasn't the worst Indy 500 I've ever seen. But it wasn't the best. I think we actually talked on this show. I can't remember if we talked about it on this show or in real life in person. This is real life, but I don't remember. I remember you saying something like that. It's pretty much two teams, Penske, and I think it was on the show.
I think I did say it when we talked about the fact that Castroneves won the pole for the race.
Yeah, and that's disappointing to me. And so in a way, it was kind of predictable in that it was. I think for me, the most notable thing was maybe the fact that Danica Patrick finished third, and it wasn't a fluke. We've used the term fluke. She ran pretty strong the entire race. You even said at one point you were impressed with the run.
I said there was some. What she did was, first of all, she drove a very patient race, which I cannot emphasize how hard that is. People think that seems very simple, but I mean, to go out there and basically say, with the competitive nature of people in sports, to say I'm going to run. I'm okay with being seventh right now. We're going to make up ground as it goes on. And she did. I mean, if something happened to Elio, if he blew a motor or had a flat tire late in the race or something like that, I think she's got a great chance at catching Weldon and passing him for the win, because she was third behind Dan Weldon. But, yeah, she drove an excellent race, and I think it was. It was the most impressive performance I've seen from her since she's been in the IRL.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we talked last week about the kind of the lore of Memorial Day weekend, and as you put on your status, the Memorial Day weekend 1100.
Yeah.
And I don't watch a lot of IndyCar racing anymore. When I was a little bit younger, I watched a lot of races.
It really, for me, peaked in like 2002 as far as interest goes.
Same here, right about the same time. And I don't watch a lot of IRL races anymore. However, I still do look forward to the Indy 500 every year.
It's gone down. The quality of the racing has gone down. There was a time it was fantastic. And actually, we've seen some really good IndyCar races. We've both been to a handful at the Chicagoland Speedway, because when you buy the tickets, they all come together. And, it usually is some very good racing, but not in Indy, though. I've never really seen a really good Indianapolis race.
And what I said actually on Sunday when we were watching the race.
Yeah,
the track is what it is for tradition and for prestige because of what it is. but for both series, the racing's not good. It's not a good track for racing. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not offending anyone, but it's not a good track for racing.
It's not a good track for racing because of the history. It's always going to be worth going back there, and it's always worth watching for me because at the end of the day, somebody gets that, their face in the Borg Warner Trophy, and somebody's going to take milk and splash it all around and all that.
Pour it down their back. Ugh.
Yeah. A side note, I said, well, watching them, I said, if I was a driver, I wouldn't pour it on my head. I'd pour it on my owner's head.
Throw it on,
Yeah, because I'll make him smell for a couple of hours,
Yeah.
after standing in the sun. But, I mean, the fact that the Indy 500 is so grand and so big that when you win it, you start crying in victory lane. That makes the 3.5 hours of racing worth it for me, is to see that guy who just cannot believe it, whose dream just came true. But the process of getting there, it's a snooze fest.
The interesting thing, though, and I was going to tell you this before the show, but I'm just going to say it now.
Okay.
The interesting thing for me, despite what we've just spent the last 5 minutes talking about, there's I don't remember where it's at, but there's an Indy race this weekend. Yeah. I think I'm going to watch it.
For me, it always ends up becoming that if I see it on TV, I'll stop and watch it. I think it's in Kansas, I want to say.
Is it in direct competition to Dover?
The IRL, I actually picked a driver, and this was the guy I rooted for, and that driver was Sam Hornish Jr. Sam Hornish Jr. now drives in NASCAR. He hasn't driven in the IRL since 2007. That takes part of the fun out of it, even, I don't have I don't have a rooting interest, something I'm invested in, which, no matter what anybody tells you, is a huge part of sports, is being invested in a team or a driver or a personality, And that's the thing. I watch NASCAR for two reasons. I enjoy the racing, but I'm telling you, part of my love of NASCAR is the fact that I have a guy that I'm invested in. I want to see him do well.
Well, and this goes back to almost stuff a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
Investment, I think, is a really important part in not just sports, in other things. Like, I'm in a lot of psych classes and a lot of social classes, and they talk about investment in, like, your job. You are 100%, not 100% more likely, but you are way more likely to care more and to be more involved when you have an investment in your job, in that that you're getting a raise or a promotion, something like that. And it's
absolutely.
I 100% agree in sports. And for me, actually, it was very similar. About 3 or 4 years earlier, actually, I don't think I've ever told you this. You're going to get a kick out of this.
Okay.
I really, really loved late 90s, like 2000, like 98 to like that time. I loved the kart series, and it was actually pretty good then. There were a lot of drivers, and the driver I picked, Juan Pablo Montoya.
Well, and he was one of the best that's gone through kart, because he won the championship as a rookie.
Yeah, I remember. I'll never forget it. He tied.
Yeah, it was a tie,
and he won because of wins.
It's at Milwaukee, by the way.
Okay.
The ARL race. I was looking.
And it is in direct competition, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's at 3:30 on Sunday.
So the race will be.
So it's going to start right in the middle of the Dover race.
So, but what's interesting is it's very interesting that we both chose drivers that are now in NASCAR.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult for me. I think I tend to like in series I'm not familiar with. Well, which would I guess be the IRL.
Yeah.
I would tend to gravitate toward the younger drivers just because I feel like if I were ever to meet them, I could be friends with them. So I would say if you were to tell me pick a driver, if you're going to start watching the IndyCar series, pick a driver to kind of root for and eventually develop into a fan, I would say like Marco Andretti.
Yeah, I can understand that. Actually, what I said during the race was there's a driver named Will Power. No joke, that is his name. And I said that if he won the race, he'd become my new favorite IRL driver.
And a reason to watch.
He finished fifth, though.
I think
though he finished fifth. That's really good
for willpower.
Yeah, for Will.
Man, can you think of all the lame puns and jokes?
I'm getting ready to launch some at you. Just wait. How'd he finish fifth? It was all willpower.
Yeah, he willed himself to a fifth place finish with a powerful car.
Well, and I said that around the time he was actually challenging Elio for the lead right as the caution came out, which was funny. You were saying something like the race got boring, and I'm like, well, you weren't paying attention to the one exciting part when Will Power tried to pass.
Yeah, I think
for
I was
the
reading
lead.
a magazine.
Yeah, you were reading a magazine.
And
Dad was on his laptop.
Your dad was on his laptop.
Or falling asleep. He fell asleep as well.
I think maybe you can agree with this. I think one thing that the IndyCar series is lacking is it's kind of the, I don't know, in a way, which isn't their fault. It's almost like the Walmart syndrome. The fact that NASCAR is like the Walmart of American racing, and nothing will ever top them.
Yes.
I think that's hurting them.
That's
I
very true.